First of all, you need to understand that medium format photography wasn't designed for every kind of photography. Most of these cameras are quite heavy and much slower in use than 35mm cameras. Most of them are pretty difficult to shoot handheld, and many photographers prefer to use tripods whenever possible. That automatically means that it won't be as easy to shoot street photography or carry one around all day while traveling. Medium format cameras were intentionally designed to shoot high-quality images for commercial work, magazines, journals, and professional photography. But don't let that scare you. The only real difference between 35mm and 120 film is the size of the film itself. Everything else works almost exactly the same. But there are a few things that you better know before you load your first roll, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you. 120 film is made out of the same plastics and light-sensitive materials as a 35mm film. It is just simply much bigger, and that changes everything. The larger the surface of the film, the more information it can capture. That means more details, more dynamic range, smoother grain, and better tonal transitions. The film itself is about 60mm wide, but different cameras expose different frame sizes. You can see the bigger the frame, the fewer photos you'll get from one roll. In my opinion, this is the trickiest question for beginners, so let's figure it out together. There are only 3 types of 35mm cameras, but there are actually 5 types of medium format cameras. The first one is folding cameras. I wouldn't recommend these for beginners. They are old, usually have fixed lenses, manually focused, and often require a little patience to use. Yes, they are beautiful cameras, but probably not the best place to start. The second type is twin lens reflex, or TLR. These cameras have 2 lenses. The top lens is used for viewing and focusing, while the bottom one actually takes a picture. They definitely look stylish, but I wouldn't recommend one for your first medium format camera either. Most of them only shoot square images, they are usually quite old, they suffer from parallax when focusing close, and they are fairly slow to use. The third type is rangefinders. If you have the budget and want the best possible image quality in a relatively compact body, this is probably the camera for you. They are expensive, don't let you look through the taking lens, have limited close focusing, but they are incredibly sharp, lightweight, and almost silent compared to most other medium format cameras. The next type is single lens reflex, or SLR, and this is where most of you will eventually end up. You compose through the taking lens, so what you see is exactly what you get. Yes, they are heavy, loud, and slow compared to modern digital cameras or even some 35mm cameras, but in return you get interchangeable lenses, close focusing, tons of accessories, and a much more familiar shooting experience. There are 2 main subtypes of these cameras. First one is modular. Like the Hasselblad or the RB67, it lets you swap film backs, viewfinders, focusing screens, and lenses. And the second one is fixed body SLRs like the Pentax 67. It just feels like a giant 35mm camera, and that's why photographers coming from digital often love them. And the last type of medium format cameras is press cameras. Just forget about them. They were originally built for journalists. They are huge, modular, incredibly durable, and today they are mostly used by enthusiasts or collectors. So, if you are buying your first medium format camera, I would go with 645 SLR. They are easier to understand, usually cheaper than larger systems, and still produce an incredible image quality. If you have the budget and you already know what you're doing, just buy Kodak Portrait. It is expensive, but it is reliable and consistently delivers beautiful results. If you simply want to try medium format photography for the first time, I would buy Kodak Gold 200 or some inexpensive black and white film. Those films require a little bit more attention while exposing correctly, but they are much cheaper, so making mistakes doesn't hurt nearly as much. On some medium format cameras, especially newer or more expensive ones, loading film feels almost identical to loading 35mm film. But I'm going to show you how to do it on my Pentax 645 because it requires a little bit more attention. First, open the camera bag and remove the film insert. If this is your first roll, you'll notice an empty spool already sitting inside the camera. That's completely normal. Every time you finish a roll, the empty spool from the new roll becomes the take-up spool for the next one. Place your new roll into the supply side and move the empty spool to the take-up side. Now pull the paper leader across the insert and feed it into the slot on the take-up spool. Wind it a couple of turns until the paper sits tightly. Next, look for the large arrow printed on the backing paper. Wind the film until that arrow lines up with the matching mark on the film insert. Now slide the insert back into the camera, close the back, and advance the film. The camera will automatically wind to frame number 1. That's it, you are ready to shoot. The biggest mistake a beginner can make while shooting medium format is treating medium format like a 35mm or even digital. Please don't. You only have 8 to 16 frames per roll depending on your camera, so every photo counts. Double check your exposure, double check your focus, double check your composition, and only then press the shutter. Also remember that medium format cameras often have much larger mirrors and shutters than 35mm cameras, and they are more prone to camera shake, so don't be afraid of using tripods or increasing your shutter speed when shooting handheld. And please don't rush through a roll. One of the best things about medium format is that it naturally slows you down and makes you think more carefully about each frame. Once you've finished your first film roll, I would highly recommend sending it to a professional lab. They will develop it for you, scan it, and you'll receive a high-quality digital images ready for further editing. Later, if you really get into film photography, of course you can learn how to develop and scan film at home by yourself. It will save you a lot of money in the long run and will give you much more control of the final results. But it is definitely something I'd recommend learning after you've already shot like 20 to 30 rolls. So that's really it. Medium format photography isn't some mysterious or complicated process. It is just film photography with a bigger negative and slower workflow. Don't worry too much about buying the perfect camera or shooting the perfect film. The most important thing is to load your first roll and start shooting. Of course, you will make mistakes. Everyone does, but after a few rolls, when you realize that medium format photography is much less intimidating than it looks, that's when the fun really begins.